5. Ancient Greece. Thanks to existing Greek sculptures and texts, we know how people dressed in ancient Greece. The Thepeplos, worn by the woman in the statue above, was the universal garment for Greek women until the 6th century B.C.E. democracy, philosophy, sculpture, dramatic tragedies, the Olympic Games. Many of the fundamental elements of Western culture first arose more than 2,000 years ago in ancient Greece. After conquering the Greeks, the ancient Romans spread Greek ideas throughout their empire, which included much of Europe. After the fall of the Roman Empire, these ideas lost their prominence in European society during most of the Middle Ages, 500–1500 CE. It was not until the Renaissance, 1350–1500 CE, that the ancient Greek and Roman origins of many European institutions and practices were rediscovered. One prominent element of Greek thought was the concept that humans are the measure of all things. The ancient Greeks wanted to know how the universe works. To probe such questions, the Greeks turned to philosophy, mathematics, and science, all things human. This gold burial mask is known famously as the Mask of Agamemnon, the heroic king of Mycenae in Homer's Iliad. Though mystery still surrounds the 16th century B.C.E. Minoan and Mycenaean cultures, archaeologists have found fascinating artifacts, including frescoes, palaces, tombs, and other burial masks. The glorification of the human form and of human accomplishment defined ancient Greek art, philosophy, literature, and religion. Even their gods were created in the image of humans. The Greek gods had human emotions, looked like humans, and behaved more like people than infallible gods. The Greeks' emphasis on the individual is one major cornerstone of Western civilization. Indeed, the spirit of individualism as defined by the Greeks is still alive and well in modern American culture and society. The Greeks were the first in the West to experiment with the concept of democratic government. Many successful modern democratic governments in the world today are heirs to the Greek model. It must be pointed out that though the Greeks developed the notion of government by the people, most people were still excluded from the political process. The first Greeks, two major groups of people, the Minoans and the Mycenaeans, were the first to populate the Greek peninsula. Not much is known about either of these groups, because they did not leave an abundance of written or physical evidence to provide clues about their civilization. However, it is known that by 1650 B.C.E., the Minoans occupied the island of Crete that is south of the Greek mainland. The Minoans were named for the legendary ruler of Crete, King Minos. Historians believe that the Minoans were seafaring traders who developed a rich, diverse culture. The Mycenaeans came from a group of people who migrated from India through the Middle East and into Greece around the year 2000 B.C.E. These Indo-Europeans mixed with the native population of Greece to become the Mycenaeans. Over time, both the Minoans and Mycenaeans expanded and conquered territory until the two civilizations ran into one another. Historians suspect that in the ensuing conflict, the Mycenaeans wiped out the Minoans, whose civilization and culture disappeared somewhat mysteriously. By 1200 BCE, the Mycenaeans were in turn wiped out by another group known as the Dorians. This ushered in a dark age that lasted from 1150 to 800 BCE. During this time, economic activity ground to a halt, and literacy disappeared. Not much is known about this period in Greek history, but a highly developed civilization resurfaced. From politics and philosophy to art, medicine, and science, the ancient Greeks generated thoughts that shaped the record of humankind for the next 2,500 years. 5a. Rise of city-states, Athens and Sparta. The Acropolis played an integral role in Athenian life. This hilltop not only housed the famous Parthenon, but it also included temples, theaters, and other public buildings that enhanced Athenian culture. Geography plays a critical role in shaping civilizations, and this is particularly true of ancient Greece. The Greek peninsula has two distinctive geographic features that influence the development of Greek society. First, Greece has easy access to water. The land contains countless scattered islands, deep harbors, and a network of small rivers. This easy access to water meant that the Greek people might naturally become explorers and traders. Second, Greece's mountainous terrain led to the development of the polis, city-state, beginning about 750 B.C.E. The high mountains made it very difficult for people to travel or communicate. Therefore, each polis developed independently and often very differently from one another. Eventually, the polis became the structure by which people organized themselves. Athens and Sparta are two good examples of city-states that contrasted greatly with each other. Athens, the think tank. Life was not easy for Athenian women. They did not enjoy the same rights or privileges as males, being nearly as low as slaves in the social system. The city-state of Athens was the birthplace of many significant ideas. Ancient Athenians were a thoughtful people who enjoyed the systematic study of subjects such as science, philosophy, and history, to name a few. Athenians placed a heavy emphasis on the arts, architecture, and literature. The Athenians built thousands of temples and statues that embodied their understanding of beauty. Today, the term classical is used to describe their enduring style of art and architecture. Athenians also enjoyed a democratic form of government in which some of the people shared power. Sparta. Military might life in Sparta was vastly different from life in Athens. Located in the southern part of Greece on the Peloponnesus Peninsula, the city-state of Sparta developed a militaristic society ruled by two kings and an oligarchy, or small group that exercised political control. Ares, the Greek god of war, was a particularly fitting patron for Sparta, which was known to be a rather warlike society. When they weren't fighting another city-state, Spartans were honing their military skills in preparation for the next battle. Early in their history, a violent and bloody slave revolt caused the Spartans to change their society. A Spartan, Lycurgus, drafted a harsh set of laws that required total dedication to the state from its people. The law's goal was to train citizens to become hardened soldiers so that they could fight off potential enemies or slave revolts. The result was a rigid lifestyle unlike any seen in Greece at the time. The devotion of Spartans to developing a military state left little time for the arts or literature. A Spartan baby had to be hardy and healthy. To test a baby's strength, parents would leave their child on a mountain overnight to see if it could survive on its own until the next morning. By age 7, Spartan boys were taken from their families and underwent severe military training. They wore uniforms at all times, ate small meals of bland foods, exercised barefoot to toughen their feet, and were punished severely for disobedient behavior. Boys lived away from their families in barracks until the age of 30, even after they were married. Men were expected to be ready to serve in the army until they were 60 years old. Women, too, were expected to be loyal and dedicated to the state. Like men, women followed a strict exercise program and contributed actively to Spartan society. Although they were not allowed to vote, Spartan women typically had more rights and independence than women in other Greek city-states. Winning by losing. The differences between Athens and Sparta eventually led to war between the two city-states. Known as the Peloponnesian War, 431–404 B.C.E., both Sparta and Athens gathered allies and fought on and off for decades, because no single city-state was strong enough to conquer the others. The whole of Hellas used once to carry arms, their habitations being unprotected, and their communication with each other unsafe. Indeed, to wear arms was as much a part of everyday life with them as with the barbarians. And the fact that the people in these parts of Hellas are still living in the old way points to a time when the same mode of life was once equally common to all. The Athenians were the first to lay aside their weapons and to adopt an easier and more luxurious mode of life. Indeed, it is only lately that their rich old men left off the luxury of wearing undergarments of linen and fastening a knot of their hair with a tie of golden grasshoppers, a fashion which spread to their Ionian kindred and long prevailed among the old men there. Thucydides, The Peloponnesian War, 1910 translation by Richard Crawley. With war came famine, plague, death, and misfortune. But war cannot kill ideas. Despite the eventual military surrender of Athens, Athenian thought spread throughout the region. After temporary setbacks, These notions only became more widely accepted and developed with the passing centuries. 5b. Democracy is born. Pericles was such a great, influential ruler of Athens that the period of history during his reign has been dubbed the Age of Pericles. The men wearing red paint were in big trouble. In fact, they would probably have to pay a fine for not appearing at the assembly meeting. After being caught shirking their duty as citizens of Athens, they had been marked with red paint as punishment. In Athenian democracy, every citizen was required to participate or suffer punishment. This practice stands in stark contrast to modern democratic governments in which citizens can choose whether or not they wish to participate. In Athenian democracy, all citizens pulled their weight. Not everyone in Athens was considered a citizen. Only free, adult men enjoyed the rights and responsibility of citizenship. Only about 20% of the population of Athens were citizens. Women were not citizens, and therefore could not vote or have any say in the political process. They were rarely permitted out in public, and were even restricted as to where they could be within their own homes. Slaves and foreigners were not citizens, and also could not participate in the democracy. In the end, democracy existed only for the free men who were originally from Athens.